While buying expensive gear most likely isn't going to get you booked, a camera like this is going to help me do the type of shoots that are going to help me get to that next level. DJI did send me this camera. No, I am not being a shill. I'm not just praising it because it was free and I get to keep it. So I've only had this for about 2 or 3 weeks and I've already shot part 2 of my best videos ever. Like, I'm never happy with any of the stuff I do, but reactions I've gotten from the client, from brand creative directors, to just friends, to just whoever, you guys on YouTube, I'm not mad about it because this camera is just kind of, again, opening my brain to stuff I always want to shoot, but part laziness, part logistics, part timing, just it doesn't allow me to rig up cameras like that unless I have a proper team. That's where this chicken camera comes in.
It's really like a chicken.
Yeah.
It's jumping. Oh my god, it's so funny.
All right guys, for sole operator, you have everything you need. Not only from the monitor alone, can you literally control everything on this camera, including false color, focus peaking, the calibration, focusing, like just all of it. You can also do everything from these grips as well. But I'm gonna just click that mode button. I'm gonna put it to focus. So now I can manual focus my Sony autofocus lens, and I can still use autofocus as well, all with the touch of a click. On the left grip over here, we can control the gimbal if we need to. From the exposure button, you can change on your false color, your waveforms, whatever you want there. You can also put it into action mode. So where you put it in action mode, where you can lock up the whole gimbal system, and it's basically like a handheld camera. So
once you set it up, you have to balance it at all once you put the camera on it?
So you pretty much only have to balance this point. So you can imagine when it comes to lens changes, like when you're using the RS3 Pro and we're trying to use big anamorphics, like obviously you can use bigger anamorphics on there. Do this point, you have to change this point, you have to pivot this point again. On here, we didn't touch this point at all, but we're going between this, we're going between some FD lenses, the Helios lens. The only point, again, you ever have to do is that point, and that's it.
So you don't have to balance any of the other axes?
No. Let's talk about lenses now real quick. I know this is one of the more divisive topics about this camera because the payload's a little bit more limited than what you could do with, say, the RS3 Pro. Also, if you stayed watching long enough, I'm giving away an RS3 Pro combo kit. So make sure to subscribe, like, and comment, and share the video because I'm gonna pick a winner, someone that commented on here, and you better be able to prove that you did all that. I'm gonna start off with my current favorite. That's the Laowa Nanomorph 35mm T2.4 1.5x stretch. This is a Super 35 lens, and this is a full frame camera. You can crop in just 1.1% in DaVinci, and then I also add some barrel distortion, and then the vignetting goes away. Another current favorite, this is the Sony 40mm f2.5. This thing's very tiny. DJI also gave me an L mount and an E mount. These mounts basically change out like lenses. The 24-105 does balance on there too. The only thing with this is anytime you zoom in or out, you're gonna have to rebalance that one point. And I did lie a little bit. There are other points that you sometimes have to change if you're doing a big leap. So say if I'm going from this 35mm to this 24-105, that's a big weight difference. You're gonna have to do another axis point, and I'll show you that here in a second. But the really annoying thing is for the autofocus, you have to go in and recalibrate the autofocus every time you zoom. That brings in this DJI 17-28mm. This thing I am beyond impressed with. You guys saw the Italian model talking about how the camera looked like a chicken. All that footage was with the 17-28. What's amazing about this is it's a power zoom. So when you have the side handles on here, you can control the zoom just from that knob, and it makes it amazing because you don't have to recalibrate or anything like that. It just works off the bat. Quality on that is like shockingly, insanely good. But yeah, I just want to go over real quick the axis point. So for most of the times, if you're switching between similar primes, this is the only axis point that you have to adjust. But sometimes, again, if you're going to heavier or lighter lenses, you might have to adjust the Z axis, and the gimbal will tell you that. There's actually a little knob just right here. The little knob right here, you just spin this, and on the monitor, it'll tell you when it's balanced. That's pretty much it, really. So guys, let's talk about the LiDAR real quick. Does it work? Yes, not all the time. When we were filming that music video, when we had haze, it doesn't like haze, but for pretty much every other situation, distance, the further you get, the less it kind of, literally for everything else, it's perfect. So if you're shooting models, if you're shooting subjects from mediums to like full body, that framing up the whole thing, it pretty much works. Obviously, again, it's a whole system. It's not face detection. It's a whole different technology. So for the autofocus tracking, there's a high, medium, and low speed. If you take it out of high while you're autofocus tracking, it will lose the subject, and that's when you start getting issues. So you have to keep it in high. But when you're trying to do anything else, like jump from different focus points, the high, and if it jumps, it's like it's very obtrusive. Like, it does work in most situations, but definitely if I'm getting paid like over 10K for a gig, I'm going to want to get an AC to just do manual focus. Like, even for the Sony cameras and the Canon cameras, if you're relying on autofocus for your pro gigs, you're gonna come into situations where it's not as solid as a really good AC. But for all my solo stuff, so again, when I was shooting that Western fashion shoot, I used the autofocus, and for most things, it was great. There was times where it kind of jumped off. It was pretty solid for most of the situations. Don't clown this little tripod that the 4D is on. This thing's by Ulanzi. It's carbon fiber, and it holds the 10 pounds like nothing. This is the part of the video that I've been most excited about. This is comparing it to the FX3 sensor. So far already, my first impressions on the 4D is that the color fidelity is just a notch better than the FX3, but the dynamic range is pretty similar. So let's start off first with a disclaimer. Getting perfect exposures on two different cameras is very difficult to match up perfectly. They have different exposure tools. I'm having to go off the histogram on the FX3 and the Zebras, though the Zebras I don't have in place for 709, versus on the 4D, we have waveforms, we have everything we need in that camera to get a perfect exposure. So I matched them up as best I could. They might be off by half a stop, quarter of a stop. So take it, I don't know, for whatever. Let's first start off with my skin tones. I'm going to push both cameras. I'm going to stretch them. I'm going to see how much information I could pull out from underneath here, the black frames of my glasses, my hair, see if there's any information clipping. Again, I'm assuming both cameras are gonna do just fine for this. We have the well down over here, so if we could pull out information from here, that's gonna be insane. I don't think either camera's gonna be able to do that. We'll see. We could check Sedona right here. She has highlights on her nose, on her white fur. We'll see if we'll be able to recover those. We'll be able to see how much of the grass. The grass is it's greenish, it's yellowish, but one thing is when you start doing like changing your exposure everywhere, sometimes you want to start doing windows, and sometimes if you're overexposing a camera, say when I have my Canon R5 and R5C, it was really hard to bring that exposure down and make it look natural.
This is gonna save me having to move cameras around, set them up, balance it, do a lens change, find a way to fucking power everything. It annoys me. Yeah. So for the times that I need a gimbal shot, I can just pick this up, get my shot, and then my other cameras are still on the tripod. Yeah, or in the other configurations. And
a lot of the times I should be using a gimbal for like my shot list. I have a bunch of gimbal stuff, and usually we'll have multiple cameras on set for that reason. Anytime it comes to a gimbal shot, the only time I really use gimbals is if I have a full team. But if it's like me and like two other guys, even then I still don't really want to use a gimbal. But this thing, again, when I shot that first thing, that little Western fashion shoot, I was like, I'm going to be shooting a lot more gimbal stuff now, because even solo by yourself, it's not like this thing is just useful, but it's a little bit more fun using, because that whole thing I'm always talking about, it kind of removes the whole stress of gear and having it set up and stress over like, oh, I don't want to have to change a fucking lens because I'm going to have to redo all this. And it doesn't exhaust you. The weight might exhaust you a little bit over the day, but using the system, it kind of makes it easier on you with the whole ecosystem. Yeah. So yeah, guys, I think we can all agree that the image quality coming out of this thing is just top notch. Again, when this first came out, I'm just like, oh, the image quality is probably gonna be good. It's probably gonna be finicky. It's probably gonna be like difficult to use. And now that I've used it on multiple gigs and just been playing with it, I'm just beyond shocked at what it's capable of. Again, it's not just a gimbal camera, it is a full-on proper cinema camera. They're giving us all the tools we need at 6K, ProRes, like everything that we want. And pretty much any other camera, they're giving it to us in this camera. And also it's a gimbal camera.